You think being liked is the goal. So you smile when you're uncomfortable. You say yes when your chest screams no. You bend your needs, twist your boundaries, and call it kindness. But let's be honest, it's not kindness. It's fear in disguise. Fear of rejection. Fear of not being enough. Fear of losing connection. People-pleasing isn't just a bad habit. It's survival. At some point in your life, you learned that being agreeable kept you safe. Maybe you were the peacekeeper in a chaotic home. Maybe love was given only when you were good. Maybe saying no came with punishment or guilt. So you made a quiet decision. I'll become whoever they need me to be. Just don't abandon me. And you played that role so well, you forgot who you were before the performance started. But here's the truth. Every time you betray yourself to be accepted, you lose a piece of your own soul. And the more you please, the more invisible you feel. The world doesn't see the real you because you've buried that version under approval, politeness, and fear. But something changes when you stop. When you stop pleasing everyone, the truth begins to surface painfully, beautifully, honestly. And not everyone will like what they see. When you stop trying to be liked, something terrifying happens. You meet the real you, the version that doesn't smile to avoid conflict, the one that speaks truth instead of what's expected, the one that has needs, the one that gets angry, the one that wants more than just being useful. And for someone who's spent years or decades being a chameleon, this self feels dangerous, unfamiliar, loud, even selfish. Because you've been trained to believe that your worth is tied to how useful you are to others, that love must be earned by shrinking, fixing, adapting. But here's the real conflict. The more you please people, the less they actually know you. And the less they know you, the more alone you feel, even when you're surrounded by approval. So, when you stop pleasing, you don't just lose fake smiles. You lose illusions. You lose relationships that were only held together by your silence. It hurts. But in that space, something honest begins. The people who remain will be the ones who see you, not your performance. And that's where healing begins.
The moment you stop saying yes to everything, the truth begins to speak. And it doesn't whisper, it shouts. You start seeing who was really there for you and who was just there for what you offered. Some people were never in love with you. They were in love with your silence, with your constant availability, with the version of you that never had needs of your own. So when you say no, even gently, they get uncomfortable, angry, cold. Why? Because your boundaries disrupt their convenience. They weren't prepared for the version of you that chooses peace over pleasing. This is where the purge begins, not because you're becoming harsh, but because you're becoming honest. And honesty filters people. It filters those who used your kindness as a weapon. It filters those who expected loyalty without giving respect. It filters those who only stayed as long as you stayed small. Yes, it hurts to lose people, but what hurts more is staying in relationships where your authenticity is unwelcome. When you stop pleasing, you don't lose love. You lose conditions pretending to be love. And that's a powerful freedom. There's a strange silence that follows when you stop pleasing. You're no longer surrounded by noise. The constant validation, the endless likes, the people who used to call when they needed something. It gets quiet. Almost too quiet. And that's when the doubt creeps in. Was I wrong for changing? Maybe I was too much. Maybe I should have stayed the way I was. But don't mistake this silence for failure. It's not rejection. It's recalibration. You're shifting from connection built on self-abandonment to connection built on truth. And that transition always feels lonely at first, because for the first time, you're not performing. You're showing up without the costume, and you're waiting to see who still claps when it's just you. This part of the journey is sacred. It's where your self-respect grows roots, where your voice begins to return, where your peace stops feeling like guilt. And maybe you've been there, in that quiet space where people start fading and you start finding yourself. If you have, you already know. That silence isn't the end. It's the beginning.
Something powerful happens when you stop living for approval. You start walking differently, speaking slower, making eye contact without fear. You take up space without apologizing for it. You don't even need to explain your boundaries. Your presence speaks for you. And here's what's fascinating. The people who once controlled the room with their expectations start feeling uncomfortable around you. Not because you're being unkind, but because you're no longer easy to manipulate. Your silence used to mean submission. Now, it means self-control. Your smile used to be automatic. Now, it's intentional. And that shift, it's magnetic to the right people, but repellent to the wrong ones. You'll notice people backing away. You didn't push them. You simply stopped making yourself smaller to make them comfortable. And your confidence? It exposes their insecurity. Many won't say it out loud, but the truth is, you didn't change too much. You just became someone they could no longer control. Have you ever felt this energy shift? When you stopped explaining yourself and people simply disappeared?
No one talks about this part. The moment you finally choose yourself, and instead of feeling proud, you feel guilty. You say no to a last-minute favor, and your chest tightens. You cancel plans to rest, and your mind races with anxiety. You speak your truth and immediately want to apologize. Why? Because guilt is what filled the space where people-pleasing used to live. For so long, your nervous system was wired to believe that self-sacrifice was love, that exhaustion meant you were a good person, that boundaries were a betrayal. So when you finally honor yourself, it doesn't feel empowering at first. It feels wrong, like you've broken some unspoken rule. But this guilt isn't a signal that you've done something bad. It's proof that you're healing something ancient. You're interrupting a generational pattern, one that says you must abandon yourself to be accepted. And breaking that pattern will feel like grief, because you're mourning the version of you that kept everyone else happy while silently suffering. This pain is part of the process. If you felt it, that strange guilt of finally being honest, you're not alone. It means you're on the right path. When you stop editing yourself to fit others' expectations, something beautiful begins to happen. You start attracting people who don't want to change you, people who don't need you to be smaller or quieter, people who celebrate your messy, imperfect, true self. These connections feel different. They're deeper, freer, and more nourishing. Because you're no longer chasing approval, you're inviting honesty. And honesty invites trust. Yes, some of these new connections might surprise you. They might come from unexpected places or from people you once overlooked. But they're the ones who see your soul, not just your role. It's not about quantity anymore. It's about quality. And this kind of connection heals. So, have you noticed a shift in your relationships when you started being honest? What changed for you?
True change doesn't happen when you win approval. It happens when you accept yourself completely, unconditionally. When you stop fighting who you are, you stop needing others to fight for you. Self-acceptance is like a shield. It protects you from the need to please, from the weight of guilt, and from the fear of rejection. It lets you rest in your own skin and face the world without a mask. But self-acceptance isn't always easy. It requires courage to look at your flaws, your mistakes, and your fears and still say, "I am enough." That courage creates space for authentic relationships because you're no longer running from yourself. And when you live from this place, you inspire others to do the same. How hard has it been for you to accept yourself? What part of you do you still struggle to embrace?
Living authentically isn't just about relationships. It's about your mental and emotional health. When you stop pretending, you release the constant pressure to perform. You stop carrying the weight of others' expectations. That relief changes everything. Anxiety eases, depression loosens its grip. You start sleeping better. Your body stops screaming for attention because you're finally listening. Authenticity is a form of self-care. It's saying, "I matter." And when you live this truth, you create a foundation of peace inside yourself. That peace becomes your strongest armor against stress, judgment, and loneliness. Have you noticed how being true to yourself affects your peace of mind? What's one small step you can take today to live more authentically? The moment you stop pleasing everyone, you start living your truth. It's not easy. It's not always comfortable, but it is necessary. Because your truth is your freedom. Your boundaries are your strength. Your authenticity is your light. And when you choose to live this way, you invite a new kind of life, one filled with respect, connection, and peace. So, ask yourself today, who are you hiding from? What part of yourself are you ready to stop hiding? You don't have to do this alone. The journey is hard, but it's worth it. If this message resonates with you, share your thoughts below, because your story might be the light someone else needs. Remember, the truth you embrace today will set you free tomorrow.